that a human being to be confined in an area, no matter how large, is impossible.
So it's not that he's not able to relate to it.
Right. On the contrary, he is aware in his soul, and he can't act within that. Sure, he can't act. He can't think from that perspective.
This is similar to what we said about the person with the breathing.
Right. If he reads through tubes. Yeah, it's a similar union on a lower physical level.
Unless a person can be free to breathe, wherever he goes, it's like
he doesn't have the experience of life. Right. He doesn't have the experience of life. Experience of life is the sense of limitlessness, of infinity.
Does this sound better than that the element of a person in prison is that he's temporarily not being able to think in terms of the perspective of it?
Okay, yeah, that's correct. Where's Yaeli? Should we wait or should we not? I mean, Yael is within infinity. I'm sorry? Yeah, I'm sure there are copies. Do we have a copy? The Ayin Hey? Ayin Ches? Make a copy.
What?
Make a copy of the page. Make Ayin Ches and Ayin Tes. Where are you from, Chaim? Toronto? How what? I'm waiting for Yaeli. I thought that.
Oh, we have another extra one in case someone needs this.
Very good. What happened to Chaim?
Oh, he went into the office.
Oh, so you have just one. Excellent.
Oh, do you have a copy or? Give this to you. You have an extra one? Yeah, just make it.
Well, you gave Chaim, you gave his? You gave his?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Oh, so Menachem went to look for Chaim.
All right.
Okay, come, sit down. Huh? All right, leave him. All right. We have to step back a little bit to have continuity. And we will start at the end of the fifth line from the bottom. So we're saying specifically what we're discussing right now is that there are elements in our own experience that we are experiencing and that we can recognize as clearly as if we see it, and yet we cannot really get a handle on it, we cannot really understand it. Like all in Yomim Ruchniim. And the mashal that we specifically speak about is, right now, is the neshamas and the chayes and neshama in the guf. So even though we understand and we recognize that even the neshama itself, the chayes that is mekayim the neshama, this was a very involved Indian that we spoke last time. The chayes and the chayes the neshama, the mekayim the neshama is really from Oirei Sof. A specific and individual neshama that's mispam is that relates to an individual person, individual guf. And the neshama, as we say, has chayim nitzchiyim, right? Eternal life. We all recognize that. We say the neshama leaves the body and it doesn't dissipate, and it hasn't chayim nitzchiyim goes to Gan Eden and will be tchiyas hamesim and other sachen. But that chayim nitzchiyim is not from the neshama itself. This is mitzad the Oirei Sof, mitzad the godly influence that the neshama receives from Elokus. It's called Oirei Sof. It's really, and the neshama itself is sort of has a definitive function. It's a neshama that gives life to a guf, and it gives and it provides for seichel and midas and all the wonderful qualities. Oirei Sof is that which is infinite, which does not have, which is above any kind of definition. The Oirei Sof is that which is maintaining and giving chayes to the neshama. So we discussed this. These things can be discussed indefinitely without end.
When we talk about neshama, what are we talking about?
Neshama? You're talking about that life force that's within us that gives us
So
life.
the neshama of the neshama, or just the different levels? Or just in general?
It makes no difference really.
So
There are different levels in the neshama, but ultimately, even the highest level of the neshama also receives its highest in kiyum from Oirei Sof.
So the Yechida being...
Yechida being that which connects to the Yochid, who is Ein Sof. So we discussed this in. I said this is a topic that knows no bounds. We can go deeper and deeper. But the principle in this is on a simple. We have to take it from a simple level, from a worldly level, and expand it to a higher level. On a worldly level, a human being is a complete entity. Right? A complete entity. He's got a guf and a neshama, and in the guf he has all the koiches, 613 different parts, and he has the neshama, the chayes and nefesh, seichel and midas and everything else. Now, even though a human being is really an independent entity by himself, if we think about the human being a little deeper, we recognize that even the very term that he's a human being, we're referring to the species of a human being. We're referring to the entire species that includes millions and millions of people. Because, billions of people, right? The reason there is one human being is because there is a whole species of human beings. And this factor, this is what keeps the human, even though there is every human being is an end in itself, but they continues to procreate and so forth. This is because there's an element of infinity in this human being. We explained several times over these weeks that the real highest of a person is in his relationship, in his presence in the bigger world. I always give this illustration, and some people don't really catch the depth of this. People are concerned about their sustenance. They're concerned about their breakfast. How am I going to? Where am I going to get my breakfast? My next meal? And that is a big, so to speak, overwhelming concern. It seems that his whole person is focused on that breakfast. But if you would look back and say, look, I will create a capsule. You heard this from me, right? And in this capsule, I will build an entire human abode. Every kind of room that you possibly can need, and every kind of occupation that you can possibly have, and every kind of food forever and ever, for 180 years. And I'll put you into this capsule. You'll never lack anything as far as that is concerned. And I'll send you out into space. Go and roam the space. What would that mean to a human being? Huh? What would that mean to a human being? It'd be death. Worse than death. So there's much to explore and to understand in this, but this is clear that a human being can only, the real life of a human being is not that which is contained in his own body. The real life of a human being is being part of a bigger life. And this is true about the human being, and this is true of the neshama itself. The highest and kiyum of the neshama is to the Ein Sof. Like the Gemara says that in Olam Haba, tzaddikim yoshvim, in Olam Haba in Gan Eden, tzaddikim yoshvim, tzaddikim are sitting, it says v'teseyim v'resheyim, it says with a crown, and nehanim ziv hashina. That's their occupation. They're nehanim ziv hashina. They're absorbing the ziv hashina, this infinity and the beauty of ziv hashina, and that's their sort of highest. So the neshamas themselves, even the neshama that gives sustenance to the guf, is also gets highest from Ein Sof. And this is something which we can understand, as I said, through this elaboration, we can understand it so clearly. Ki'ilu roya. It's as if you see it with your mind's eye. But this is definitely so. No neshama is independent and mitzias unto itself. It's as if you see. When we call Mokem, this is where we're going to start at the end of the fifth line from the bottom, on Ayin Ches. When we call Mokem, still, Eino margishim, still we cannot sense rak mitziyuson. We can only sense the mitziyus of this neshama, and the mitziyus of the Ein Sof. V'loi mahuson, and not the mahus. Metzius and Mahus is a very important concept in Chassidus. Metzius means the presence, the actual fact of it. And Mahus, essentially, the word Mahus means Mahu, what is it? Everything that exists has a Mahu, has what is it? In our perception, see, this is something which we need to understand. In our perception, the Metzius in the physical world, the Metzius seems to come before the Mahus. Like for instance, first you have wood, and you build a table with 4 legs and a board, and once you build it up, that becomes a table. What makes a table a table? Because you have wood and 4 legs. But that's not the case. In reality, you build the 4 legs and the board because you conceptualize the table. And if not for this concept of a table, this would just be plain wood. If you take this table and put it in the desert, it's not a table. It's wood. It's no different between that wood and the wood that's rotting on the ground. It's a table only when it is in a context. And the context gives its presence on a more fundamental level. The Metzius, the fact that it exists and it's made from wood and board, that is the Metzius, that is the chitzenius of it. The Metzius is something which your hand can feel, but your mind does not relate to Metzius. Let's say, in simple terms, let's say if there was no light over here, it was in total darkness, and you walked around and you felt something, you would not feel a table, you would feel a piece of wood. And then you would figure out, oh, this wood has a form. But if you come in and there's light, you don't see the wood. What do you see? You see a table. Because that's the real thing. That's the Mahus. Mahus is, why is it there? What's its significance? So in the Yomim Ruchniim, we can see we can recognize the Metzius. We can see that there's an neshama that gives chayes. But what is that neshama? How does it give chayes? We cannot we have no comprehension of it. Why Mahus? This is Mahus. And the explanation is, the reason for that, Shemachmas choymer haguf, that because of the choymer haguf, the coarseness of the body, the body is physical. And because the body is physical, even though we have a neshama, and we understand with the koichas and nefesh, the koichas, the seichel that comes from the neshama, but because the neshama, we can only understand in the koichas and nefesh as we sense them through the body, that becomes limited, that the koich can only sense that which the body can relate to. And the body is a gashmi, is a choymer. Therefore, we can only really comprehend fully that which we can explain to the body. Oh, this is what it is. The body has, in a certain sense, agree with what we are telling it. It's limiting the ability to understand. And because of Chemer Haguf, it's impossible for a person lahasig mehus haruchnius, to comprehend the mahus, the mahu, that was the essence of this spiritual element, hamalubash bei mamash. That which is mamash, really malubash bei. He really lives with it. He experiences it all the time. It's melubash bay, but he cannot comprehend it. There's no way, because the guf cannot relate to it. And this is, just to take a little detour, as I always point out, this is the the gross error that people have made, that since I cannot comprehend the neshama, therefore it doesn't exist. I will relate, practically speaking, realistically speaking, I have to relate to that which I can realistically, fully demonstrate and understand. And I can only understand mitzias. Therefore, there is no mahus. How does the body function without a mahus, without a neshama? I'll figure it out. There's some kind of a nervous system, and something triggers it, and electrical pulses, and all kinds of different things. No matter how far-fetched and how crazy it is, and how contradicted it is from the experience, makes no difference. I cannot comprehend in the show. And if I cannot comprehend it, then it's not real. This is a tremendous fallacy, tremendous error. The fact that I cannot understand, since I'm limited to understand only that which the body can understand, clearly that doesn't limit the reality itself. The Hainu HaNefesh v'koiches, the nefesh and its koiches, that is melubash, that is actually functioning in the body. The inyan of koiches HaNefesh, we always speak of seichel, and I always, demonstrate that seichel is really a nefesh koyach, is a ruchnisike koyach. It's not like I point out that 2 times 2 equals to 4, and that's what's called seichel. So 2 times 2 equals to 4. There's the physical element of this, and then there's the seichel-dik element of this. The physical element of this is actually nothing. You take 2 and 2, and then it automatically forms 4. But the concept, 2 times 2 equals to 4, is a seichel-dik concept. And this concept, it draws only from seichel, or draws from the nefesh. Where does it draw from? I explained, more simply, 1 plus 1 equal to 2. I said that inside the physical presence, 1 plus 1 equals to 1 plus 1. Doesn't equal to 2. What correlates these two? How do they become 2? It becomes only a conventional thing. It's for ease of reference you say it's 2, but it's not 2. It's 1 and 1. But if we can comprehend that 1 and 1 is 2, that because we have the concept in our seichel that there's unity in the world and there's correlationship between entities, and therefore there is 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus 2 is 4. That is a seichel-dik concept. That comes from the neshama, doesn't come from the guf. A similar inyan is explained regarding other kind of koiches, like the koyach hashmiya, hearing. So there's a physical, natural phenomenon in hearing. The ear has eardrums, and they vibrate. They make a noise. The noise wave travels, and it hits the eardrum, and it vibrates, and you hear. But that hearing is hearing just a disturbance, just a noise. That hearing does not tell you that it's a beautiful tune. That's not the beautiful tune. This comes from the koyach nefesh of shmiya, that the nefesh appreciates in something that comes through hearing of a sound, a beautiful sound. This is the koyach nefesh. This is not the physical experience of the goof doesn't appreciate that it's a beautiful sound. That's ridiculous. To the goof, any sound is the same thing. So these are kochas hanefesh, and we can see it, we can experience it. It's in Islam if we actually live with it, and yet there's no way that we can really fully understand what type of entity is this. So ruch is the entity that within the physical confines, the limits of the physical understanding, and there's no, we cannot understand. So this is even the koichas hanefesh, hamelubas bei mamash, that is melubas that he actually experiences. The kol shekain, and then surely, this is going back to the beginning of this whole discussion. Surely, the chinas hadibur ho'elyein, the asora ma'amoris, the dibur elyein, the godly speech of the Asora Ma'amoris. Asora Ma'amoris refers to the 10 Vayomers in Sheishes. Vayomer Elokim Yehi Oyer, Yehi Rokia, Yehi Mavdil, Yehi Rabbi, and so forth. So the Asora Ma'amoris, this is what created the entire world. Hamachaya Umahava Me'ayin Leyesh, that gives life and presence, and it brings it out me'ayin leyesh, from a state of non-existence into a state of existence. Kol hishtalshelus hanivroyim b'biyah. The entire structure and the entire development of the nivroyim b'biyah, of the creatures in the three worlds of Bria, Yitzir, Asiya. So clearly there, ein onu masigin, we cannot possibly comprehend mahuz hadibur mahu. What is this dibur? What kind of koyach eliki is this that creates me'ayin liyesh? We'll try to go back and discuss this in a few moments. Kiyim only mitziyusoi. The mitziyus of that dibur, murgeshes, can be sensed, and it can be sensed so clearly. Ki'ilu roya mamash. It's as if he would actually see it with his eyes. Of course, it's not his physical eyes, but he sees it with his mind's eye. It's so clear that it's like he sees the reality of it. Clearly, that one should experience this phenomenon, that he should see the mitzias of the dibur ho'elyin, ki'ilu roya. One has to really, so to speak, refine his seichel and find a clarity in his seichel to be able to relate to it and see it. So we will go quickly, just the stages and the steps that lead us to recognize this truth. The whole world, the whole physical world, despite the fact that it is so real to us, it is so real to us that we cannot even imagine it not being there. We've never seen, never experienced a moment where it's not there. Yet, when we think with our seichel, what is seichel? Here's another phenomenon of seichel. Like we discussed yesterday about imprisonment. A person is in prison, or this capsule for that matter. He's missing nothing, physically speaking. Even though he's missing nothing physically, and yet as a human being, he can't find peace for himself. What is it? What's disturbing him? Something in his seichel is disturbing him. And I want to discuss this with you in a little bit more in detail. We discussed in the past the difference between sight and touch. Remember that? We said that touch is very convincing. I'm feeling it in my hands. Surely there is something here. And sight is also, I see it. There's a fundamental difference between what I see and what I feel in touch. And also the effect. Why is sight convincing and why is touch convincing? Touch is convincing because when I touch it, it affects my hand. It affects me. So I am affected by it. So I don't really relate to the reality of the item that I'm touching. I'm relating to its effect upon me. Sight is where I'm actually looking at the item itself. I'm not coming in touch with it. It's not affecting me. I see the item because the item is there. Now, taking this, examining this phenomenon, we see that there is a fundamental significance in this. Touch does not really tell me anything in terms of truth. It's only, this is how I feel. It's like a person saying, I think this is right because that's the way I think. Or that's how I want to think. That's how I feel. There's no reality, no truth to it. Sight relates a person to the truth of the world. It's really there. This is the difference between seichel and other faculties. And midas is a matter of fact. Midas is on a personal basis. Seichel is what? Seichel is called the einay. Seichel is where I relate to the truth because it is true. Just like in sight, I see it because it is there, not because it affects me. So therefore, I see the whole world, and it's real, but there are two levels in this. There's a level where it is real because it affects me. I can't deny it. If I'm going to deny it, I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to walk into the table and get hurt. This is on a personal basis. This is not seeing the reality. How does seichel relate to this reality? Seichel is looking for something from a different angle completely. Seichel is not looking from the fact, is it there? That means I'm compelled to accept it even though it doesn't make sense to me, but I'm compelled to accept it because it's there. Because if I don't accept it, I'm going to get hurt. That's not sufficient to seichel. Seichel is looking to see what makes it real? What justifies its existence? Because seichel is looking for the reality itself. Is it really real? So when you come from a seichelic perspective, from the perspective of seichel, there is absolutely no reality to the world itself. There's no reason, like if you say this cup is here this second, and it's here the next moment. There's nothing compelling that it should continue to exist. Nothing in it that says it must exist. It can exist one moment, not exist the next moment. And that is true regarding the entire physical existence. Physical existence is just something which we accept, but there is absolutely no compelling reason why it exists on its own, from it itself. Therefore, the Seichel says that it really does not exist from its own resources. Where does it come from existence to exist from? It was created. It was created by a resource, by an infinite resource, by God. The fact that we don't see it, because that resource, that God is invisible from a physical perspective. It's above it. This is the simple phenomenon of saying that we can recognize ki'ilu roya, as if one actually can recognize the truth and see it, that the world is yesh meyayin. There is nothing in the world that says it has to be. It makes itself. And yet it's there. So it's there from way of meyayin. And there's a koyach halaki that makes it, brings it yesh meyayin. Because otherwise the yesh on its own has no compelling presence. You with me or not, Avram?
Yeah, I understand, but the thing is, I have a hard time understand. I mean, like for example, I know the table is here, right? But there's nothing that compels. The table is not existing from itself. Meaning there's something that's creating it. This is what we're saying here.
That's right. If the table is here, if you come in and see the table is here, okay, you know right away somebody put it here.
Yeah.
How do you know?
This table's not just.
Because there's no other reason why it should be here. Who says there is a reason? That's no reason. No such thing. Seichel, by the way, looks for, what's behind it. What's the reality behind it?
Then why do we have to say that it has to be created every moment?
Because every moment it has no reason to be. It doesn't have a reason to be on its own, not one moment. This is in the general world, but this goes back to what we said before in the neshama, in the goof. The goof lives, and it is really a solid life. It's healthy, and it can function, and it can even heal itself. If it gets hurt, it can heal itself. But we all understand that the reason it has that health and the reason it can heal is because it has a neshama in it. On its own, the goof cannot survive for one moment. The neshama leaves the goof, and the goof disintegrates into nothingness. It's non-entity. Yet, while the neshama is in it, it's a whole human being.
I would say the same thing for all the spiritual things with the Ein Sof.
That's right. The same thing is on a higher level, right? That's exactly right. So this is And coming back to the physical world, we're saying that there is a koyach halaki, what's called Dibur Ho'elyen, Dvar Hashem, that creates the world Yesh B'Yayin. And it is in the Asoram Amoris. There's a reality in the world. And that reality, in other words, there's a real reality, there's neshama in the world. That reality is from the Asoram Amoris. Someone once asked me, a very intelligent person, really wanted to understand this whole concept, Asoram Amoris, the Oisius and so on. Tell me, what does it mean, Asoram Amoris? Where does the table come from, Asoram Amoris? Where does the table come? I said, the table comes from the Maimer Nasa Odom. Nasa Odom includes all human facilities. Because what is a table? A table represents a human being. That's what a table is. Again, as we said before, you can say the table is just a board with 4 legs, accidentally happens to be a table, but we say no, a table is really a table. It has a really, so to speak, a neshama in it, an element. And if you take this table out into the desert, it turns back to being a piece of wood.
It's still a table though.
Excuse me?
You put the table in the desert, it's still a table though.
It's not. I understand what you're saying. It has the shape of a table, but it's not a table. A table is only when it's related to the human being.
So you're talking in relation to what then?
What?
So if it's not in relation to human beings, the table is in relation to what?
In relation to the physical, to the physicality of the world. It's a piece of wood, no different than a piece of wood lying around.
It's a word of purpose.
Excuse me?
It's a piece of word of the purpose.
It's devoid of purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's different though. I mean, it's even to the physical world, it still serves a purpose. I mean, like even like.
How much purpose does it serve in the desert? It says right there in the beginning in Chumash that actually when the Rebbe created the world, and they created all the vegetation and everything, but it didn't really come out. Didn't really come out. Why? Because Odom Ayin Lavid is Odom. There was no human being to service the earth. And when the Odom came out, and Odom realized the value of rain, so he asked for rain, and rain came out. And then everything protruded back from the ground. This is on a broader scale. This is an important concept, and it's a little bit out of context here. It's a broader concept. The truth is, the entire world, the value, the significance of the entire world is the human being. Whether it's the table or the wild beast. I told you the experience I had one time, right? Many years ago, we took the family to the Museum of Natural History. You remember that?
Yeah, you told us about the Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah. Museum of Natural History took the family, their kids, many years ago. And I was walking around with the kids, and looking from one display to the other. They were showing all kinds of prehistoric or primitive animals. really the ugliest thing you can see. And in kind of positions where they're eating each other, whatever makes a difference. Whatever, all kinds of different, skins and bones, and living in the desert. And they were on the side there was a little inscription describing the nature and the abode of this animal. And then at the end, this all continued till the humans came. And they kind of displaced this wonderful animal. Then you go to the next display, again the same thing. Another kind of animal. And again, the inscription describing their nature. Then this all persisted until the humans came. And then the humans, it's a curse on the humans. It's the worst thing that ever happened to the world. And I was saying to myself, I'd like to meet up with this genius over here. I asked him just one simple question. Tell me, what would the world be worth? What would the world stand for if not for the humans? Take humans out of the world. What do you got? What do you have?
People don't think highly of humans.
Excuse me?
Society doesn't think highly of humans.
Forget about society.
That's who's making the display. People who runs the museum.
Okay, look, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about you.
I don't believe in evolution.
No, forget about evolution. I'm talking about the concept. What would the world be without humans? What is the value? What is the value of the world if not for the humans? It's absolutely zero. It's insignificant totally.
We'll go around the sun then.
Huh?
We'll go around the sun then.
There's nothing to it. The whole world really represents the human being. That's why there's the whole system. There's a human being and everything has significance. Everything is real.
Now I got the full story.
Huh?
Now I got the full story.
The full story. Well, you had it there.
I didn't have.
So this is what Rebbe is saying over here. This is in a different context. Yesh meyayin is something that we can see. Kilo roya be'inav. It's real. And yet, as we're going to conclude, we cannot really comprehend what kind of dibur is it. What is this dibur alaki that creates the world? But we know, this is what we have said, it's clearly there. The whole world represents a godly koyach. An infinite godly koyach.
And the way to perceive it is with the seichel.
We can perceive it with the seichel, its presence, its mitzius, but not the mahus. That's what he said. I'll finish this line, you'll see. Kivaroya mamash, as if he sees it, add to the extent it's so clear, shall bechino zu, that for this element, for this principle, einoi shayach amuna. The word amuna is not applicable because it's not a name of faith, of believing. This is seichel. Kiyim bechinas das v'hakora. This is something that you can know and you can have cognizance of. Hakora. And I'll talk about Hakora. I spoke about Hakora before. The next time, but just it's really a name for Hakora is something that we can actually recognize. Kilu roya mamosh. It's as if you actually see it. That's how clear it is, so to speak, to the seichel. Mibsori echzelaka. Okay, now we're into minor, right? 5 minutes to 7 is minor. A few more minutes. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to continue, but I can't go very, very far. I want to talk about Das v'Hakora. We spoke about it in the past.
What was that?
Das, let's on top of this one page here. In test, Das v'Hakora. Das, the word Das normally we translate as knowledge. And Hakora means recognition. Now, knowledge usually is the result of study, of learning. And there's Chokhmah, Bina, V'das. Right? This is a process that you get from Chokhmah to Bina, and then you get to Das. So, in normal parlance, so to speak, you would say, you studied, and now you know. What does it mean that you know? It means that you can go and be tested, and you'll be able to answer the questions of the things that you studied. Okay. This is called knowledge, but actually this is a knowledge that is akin to memory. There is an element of knowledge, but it's not the real sense of Das. This is not the real meaning of the word Das. In brief, when you study something, Chokhmah and Bina, you're learning about something external to yourself. You're finding out about something. As long as it is at that stage that you're finding out about something, then this is, so to speak, a foreign knowledge. You know about something external. And you know that it exists, you know you have proof that it exists, and so forth, you understand it. But it has nothing to do with you personally. It's not a personal knowledge. It is knowing about something. And you and this knowledge itself is two separate things. You can study things and then close the book as if nothing happened. That can happen in Chokhmah and Bina. Das is when that knowledge becomes yours. It's not just memory. It's something that you personally relate to. It becomes your personal orientation, a personal reality, a personal truth. It's true that you can go through Chokhmah and Bina, but ultimately the real, when we talk about a human being, the expression is that he is a bar das. You hear this expression, a bar das. Why not a bar chokhmah, a bar bina? Why bar das? Even though chokhmah and bina are also uniquely human. Because what really denotes a human being, it is not that he's able to learn about things, but that he's able to acclimate to it. Acclimate, to absorb it and rise up to it. That's what I mean? Internalize. And they should become part of his own thinking, part of his own reality. And this is where Das and Hakora are correlated, because Hakora means recognition. Recognition is like when you recognize a person. Let's say a person that you're familiar with, and you see him from his back. You say, oh, this looks like Yosef. What makes you think it's Yosef? This is his stance. This is how he stands. This is how he walks. This looks like his hat. You have an explanation why you think it's Yosef. But when you see him from the front, you see his face. You don't say, he looks like Yosef because he's got a gray beard. It's Yosef, finished. Not because, I don't know why. I know it's him. That's called Hakor. This is related to Das. This is related to Das, that this knowledge becomes your personal knowledge. You can really relate to it. This inyan that the world is yesh me'ayin, there's a koich elokי that creates the world yesh me'ayin, can be known at the level of Das and Hakor. One really reflects on the reality of the world. He can really feel this truth. Not just proof and knowledge, like we discussed before, the logic of it, beyond logic. It can be something that's real to you. This is the reality of the world. And that's why, the Muna is not applicable. Amuna means that it goes beyond the conscious seichel. But this is something which can also be experienced.
The Emunah could be brought down into the das?
No, Amuna is a higher level. We'll talk about it. That's what Matzeh, this is the whole Maimon is about, Amuna.